Alright, so Kane and Lynch 2 Dog Days. You know, sometimes I wonder at what point in my life as someone who appreciates video games and the art behind the creation of video games got me to places like this. It's the same question I asked myself last year when I was bedridden sick for 2 days and I spent short bursts of lucidity playing through and unlocking all the single-player achievements on Rogue Warrior. I mean, you grow up playing some old-school Sonic game as a little kid and you get suckered into buying a couple of the newer shit Sonic games as a teenager before you really know any better. Fine. You get hyped up for a game because it's based on an IP you love and you want to support, and just to be disappointed, but you sit down and play through it a few times and defend it to all your friends because you really wanted it to be great and it's easier to pretend than to accept the inevitable. I can get that. Whenever I see some big AAA open world loot fest along the lines of a Skyrim or an Assassin's Creed or a Grand Theft Auto, I'm sure it'll be well polished and have a lot of work put into it, and it'll be perfectly adequate and soak up hundreds of hours of my life on a first playthrough, but I have little interest in picking it up anytime within the first year, or even when I can secure a copy for $20 or more. But I hear about a game that's labeled as an absolute shit show, a colossal failure on every level that's buggy and irritating and tends to give people headaches when played, possibly even motion sickness and nausea. I am fucking sold. Now, as much as I do wonder about my urge to seek out games like this when I'm balls deep into it and I'm experiencing a moment of existential quandary, full of loathing and self-doubt and wrapped in the pain and isolation of the fact that I'm just quoting Weird Al lyrics right now, I know why I do it. I love video games. And as much as I want to dissect why a game that's considered to be great is considered to be so, I want to dissect schlocky, poorly put together trash. It's a lot of fun for me, and I believe you can learn just as much about game design from understanding why a bad game is horrible or doesn't work just as much as you can understand why a great game does. Now, when I bought Kane and Lynch 2, I knew I was going to record myself playing it, but I was still very uncertain as to whether or not I was going to review it. See, this game had been on my list for a while, and since I started not only attempting to make real review content, but also Let's Play style content, I wanted to record and edit footage of me playing through an entire game. And since I have little to no experience doing either of those, I figured a game with a historically short campaign of around 4 or 5 hours would be a perfect place to start. However, when it came to reviewing it, I was on the fence because if it did turn out to be worst case scenario and this was another Rogue Warrior or Two Worlds 2 situation, I didn't want to just be another guy who makes a video to remind everyone that the game isn't good. Kane and Lynch 2 has a very well-known reputation for being shitty. Plenty of other content creators with more skill have already said that more than plenty of times and have torn it apart mechanically and systematically better than I ever could. And it would be an insult to you folks at home as well as a waste of my time just to come on here and be like, yep, the game sucks. Don't forget to hit the fucking bell.
Later, Nick.
However, after I sat down and played Kane and Lynch 2, I decided I did want to review it, because I actually enjoyed playing it quite a lot. Now, going into this game, I had heard and read reviews, but had never watched any footage of it, so I was expecting a barely functional, poorly put together glitch fest of a shit show that left me with nothing but a migraine and a desire to get my hands on that time machine from that movie Napoleon Dynamite. So even if it didn't work and I can't go back and get my time, I could give myself a strong shock to the balls that I desperately deserved. However, what I got was an intense experience with a game that I would consider to be, at least up to this point, the best bad game I've ever played. No, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that everyone is wrong and that this game is some misunderstood gem, because it isn't, in any way, shape, or form. Nor am I going to recommend that everyone should give it a chance. If you're already aware of this game and it doesn't interest you, then don't play it. Like I said, I love playing trash. And as far as trash games go, this game is awesome. This is like your favorite bad, but I love to watch it action movie from the 80s or 90s if it was directed by John Waters. It's cheesy, cliched, and the plot is nonsense, and the dialogue is bad. The actors are putting their all into it anyway, and most importantly, you just kind of get sick looking at it. Which is kind of the thing. There's absolutely no way that anyone can convince me that the developers didn't know exactly what they were doing. This game feels crafted in such a concise way that leads me to honestly believe that the team behind it sat down and said, okay, so this IP is getting a sequel. Nobody has any expectations of it. The first game is known exclusively for being extremely mediocre and controversial because our response to its reviews got Jeff Gerstmann fired from GameSpot and essentially drove the final nail in the coffin of the supposed integrity of video game journalism that the average video game consumer assumed still existed. Square Enix is not going to give us much time, not much of a budget, and the game will probably be panned. What are we going to do? Then everyone kind of looked down, counting the number of shoes on their feet for a second, until some brave soul spoke up and said, well, how about we just fuck it up, fam. What leads me to feel this way is that there are actually a few really well-crafted segments of this game. The big one that comes to mind is during the second to last level when you're making your way up to the top floor of a high-rise office building where the main bad guy is. Towards the end of it, there's helicopters firing at you, just ripping this building apart, and you're up over 50 stories and the wind is just whooshing all around you as you fight off what's essentially a private army, and it's pretty intense. The opening level to this game has you chasing down this guy through the buildings and streets of Shanghai, kicking indoors and running through people's apartments, and it's actually not a bad first level of this game. game. I actually like the fact they removed grenades from the first game and instead you have to search around for gas tanks and fuel canisters in the environment to use as an improvised explosive, which aren't actually available in every level because not every environment calls to just have those lying around, so you really do have to pay attention to your surroundings. I think part of the reason I felt so good about this game is because I played through it my first time on hard difficulty. This is one of those games that has a pretty sizable difference between the normal difficulty and the hard difficulty settings. I play a lot of shooter games, both third and first person, and I figured I would have the patience for it and it would help me extend the time of my playthrough. Doing this was a good decision in my opinion because it made certain segments of the game a lot more intense than they were when I replayed through the game on normal difficulty. This intensity combined with the fact I had to focus more on my surrounding during sequences where I was surrounded and pinned down by enemy gunfire. During parts where enemies are everywhere and you're playing on hard difficulty, coming out of cover for even a second will result in gunfire from every which way that will end you almost instantaneously. One of the other things I expected from this game was just a bunch of brain-dead AI that just stayed in one spot and sort of bobbed up and down like I've seen in other mediocre or bad third-person cover-based games. But the enemy AI in this game is actually pretty active. They move around the environment during moments when you are reloading after being pinned down, and they'll try to flank you if they can, and will actually require you to focus and follow them on higher difficulty. I was pretty impressed by that because I genuinely expected much worse. However, this is sort of a double-edged sword because during moments of the game that are really well put together as far as enemy placement, level design, and where the cover is placed, it's really awesome, and you feel like a badass after gaining the upper hand and clearing the room. However, during certain segments of the game that feel more lazily put together, you'll find yourself just dying over and over again due to the fact that even though your enemies have pinpoint accuracy, you can't hit shit with any weapon that isn't single shot, because your weapon spread and recoil is ridiculous. Seriously, if you're using any kind of automatic weapon and you aren't essentially at point blank range, good luck. Plus, since enemies can kill you on hard mode when you're even an inch out of cover, and sometimes while you're in cover because they can also shoot through concrete apparently, they can flank you easily in rooms where on the side you come in has much less cover than the side they came in on, as well as sometimes actually shooting a gas tank back at you in midair, placing them right next to you when it explodes. There are several parts of this game that are extremely frustrating. If you do intend to play this game on hard mode, I recommend doing so with a bottle of booze. Also, as well as hard mode, there's an extreme difficulty, which is the highest the game has to offer, and don't do that. Just don't. You're better than that. You have friends and family members who love you and will support you in whatever you're going through. Even if that isn't the case, there's always AA. I mean, even if you're not an alcoholic, AA would still be a much better spend of your time than playing through this game on extreme. You don't have to prove anything. We all believe you could do it. We just love you enough not to want to see you go through it. Now the visuals. I played through this game with all the visual effects turned on, and I kept the handy cam setting that holds the camera still off, because I wanted to soak in the full amount of shit. Long story short, yes, this game can be very headache-inducing. The motion sickness some people have mentioned didn't happen to me, but fuck is this game hard to look at sometimes. Big, bright scan lines, choppy glitch effects, explosions that light up the entire screen, gun muzzle flash that actually blurs what you're aiming at. This shit is art. This is the best looking made to look bad thing I have ever experienced across pretty much any visual medium ever. I mean, Jesus Christ, just fucking look at it. This is such an abomination in the eyes of all that is good and holy, and in my honest opinion, it's what elevated this game from just a mediocre third-person shooter to a grindhouse style art production. That's probably just me and my pretension combined with my love for straight-ass garbage, but I love the way the visual style hurts me. If this were a person, I would call it daddy. Anyways, those are my thoughts on Kane and Lynch 2 Dog Days. If coming away from this and looking at this footage you think you might be interested in it, I'd say give it a try. You can get it for any 7th gen console and or get it off of Steam for around $10. If this still hasn't convinced you, however, I'd say just save your wallet and your brain from the eventual remorse. Anyway, remember, please hit that button if you're mentally ill and you want to stick around for this shit, you fucking loser.
Later, Nick!